Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us on today's Active Countermeasures webcast. Today, we are doing AC-Hunter with Azure. I'm really excited about this one. And if you are new to our webcast, welcome and thank you for being here. All of our chat and QA for our events take place on our Threat Hunter community Discord server. So if you haven't already joined our community on Discord, I would recommend doing that now. I have gone ahead and shared the link to our Discord inside of the Zoom chat for everybody. So you can join us in the Threat Hunter community. And if you scroll down the server to the Active Countermeasures section of the server, you'll see a live webcast chat channel that has a big red dot next to it. And that is where you can chat with us today. And you'll also notice if you aren't new to our webcast, at least, you'll notice the team is a little different than it usually is for these. The reason for that is because about half of our team right now is in San Diego for Wild West Hacking Fest Way West. So Keith, Casey, Bill Stearns, they are all either on a plane or in San Diego right now. Awesome. And I can see some hellos and gifts coming through in Discord. One of the things we like to say is happy time zone. We say happy time zone because it's a different time for a lot of the people joining us than it is for us. So for me, it's afternoon. I guarantee there's someone on here who it's like 1 a.m. or middle of the night. Always love seeing people like that. And I don't even think we're all in Eastern time. Is everyone here in Eastern time or?
On the panel here? No, Logan and I are in Mountain Time.
I'm in Eastern. Yeah.
You're in Eastern. Tom, where are you located? I guess I'm not sure where you're at.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So
okay.
Beautiful, sunny Pittsburgh.
Oh, awesome. Are you originally from that area?
No, actually, my childhood was spent in Northern California, outside of San Francisco, in the Bay Area. And then when I was 12, my parents moved us off to the Philadelphia suburbs. So I went to high school in the East Coast, and then moved to Pittsburgh to go to college and never went back. And when I first got here, it's from the East Coast. It seemed very Midwest, And then I talked to people who are genuinely from the Midwest, like, man, Pittsburgh's so East Coast, It was kind of funny. So it's good. Shelby, I like your headset. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the cat ears is something I've kind of become known for on the webcast. So
that's funny. No, good stuff. Well, I was wondering how long it'd be before somebody posted something about May the 4th be with you. So officially, yes. May the 4th be with you.
Yes.
Yes, it's May 4th. So it's Star Wars Day. And it's actually also Bill Stearns' birthday today. So
really?
he isn't joining us on the webcast because, like I said, he's on his way to San Diego right now. But if you know Bill Stearns from past webcasts or events, please say happy birthday to him, either if you're in San Diego at Wild West Hacking Fest, or if you're in the chat and want to tag at W Stearns and just say happy birthday. I'm sure he'd love to see that whole spam of happy birthdays come through. So
I'm just texting him right now. I didn't know that.
Perfect.
Well, happy birthday, Bill. He's got quite the party lined up tonight.
Yeah, that's true. You got a few hundred people, six or 800 people there at his birthday party. So good for him. Little did they know they were signing up for Bill's birthday party, though. So.
Right. Yep.
That's funny, man. No, good stuff. No, I'm pretty excited and pretty pumped about this webcast ultimately today because, just having been with Active Countermeasures for a few months, and I can tell you, we hear a lot of people saying like, what can you do for Azure? And I know you guys went through a pretty extended process of trying to put this together. So I'm excited to hear about it. And this was definitely a webcast I wanted to be a part of. So thanks for letting me in, Shelby.
Oh, of course. Thank you for being here.
Good.
Yeah, it's always nice when people get to see new faces from our team too, because they see a lot of like me and Chris Brenton and Bill Stearns and Casey and Keith, but we haven't seen a lot of like Logan, Brian, or Tom. So the new faces are always nice.
I know this is my first appearance on a webcast for ACM. Logan, have you been on one before?
Not for ACM, no.
No. Cool. We're making our debut.
Yeah, this is mine
Woohoo.
too. So we have 3 complete noobs on this one.
Yay.
I know. Craziness. So we may
Oh,
see
hey.
some others drop in later. But
Oh, hey
I
there,
see
Chris.
Yeah.
oh, here he is, the man himself.
Hey,
Good.
folks.
Hey.
Well, that's interesting. It's telling me I can't start my video because the host stopped it. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Yes, you need permission to show yourself.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
Well, Chris, may the 4th be with you.
Tom,
officially.
you're like very beardless.
I am. My face is quite shorn now. Yeah, usually I grow it in the winter and shave it off in the spring, and this year was no exception. So
Yeah,
I
I used to
am,
do the same thing.
But what was it
We-
moving to Florida that inspired all year beardlessness, or?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just too hot all the time. And and you get the you get like the passport picture with the grizzly beard and everything else, and then you get it all shaved off and you go through customs and they're looking at you like, yeah, you sure this is you? What happened?
It's funny. No, good stuff. Good stuff indeed.
Chris, I like your wall decorations. What are those?
So that's debatable. They're either rat chasers, so they keep rodents out of the walls,
Yeah.
or it's a hypnotic effect to make everybody convinced that all of this stuff is easy and they'll understand everything you say, no problem.
Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic.
So it's one or the other, take your pick.
Yeah. I see you also have your home defense weapon back there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yep, that I do. So, wow, I guess there's like a lot of people in the air heading to Wild West Hackin' Fest.
Yes.
We usually have Keith and Chris and Bill, and they're all in an airplane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were
and
just
it's
talking about that.
a bunch of newbies today. So we're gonna see if I
Let's
cut the
see how
mustard
bad
for
we
Preshow
can mess
Banter.
this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
Uh,
So Chris, I heard you had some cat issues. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got a cat that was like having trouble. He looked like he was having some breathing issues, and we took him to the vet. And the vet said, "Yeah, no, checked him out. He's fine." So we brought him back home, and he seemed to get a little better, then seemed to get a little worse. And we were like, "Well, but the vet said he's okay. But so let's just take him to see a different vet." And we took him to the other vet, and the other vet said, "Oh my God, you've got to like get him into an oxygen tank immediately." So. So brought him to another facility that had an oxygen tank. He had some fluid issues that had to get dealt with. And then he had to get rushed to another facility to get his heart checked out. So now there's a bunch of pills he has to take, which he's having a really fun time convincing me, "Oh yeah, I ate that pill. Don't worry about it." And then,
That's about
So-
right.
so thanks to Keith and Chris, they turned me on to a pill shooter. So it's this, it almost looks like a syringe, and you put a pill in the end of it, and you get the cat's mouth open and you like shoot it towards the back of their throat. And yeah, that seems to work a little bit better. So
Yeah, it's been a while since I've tried to feed a cat a pill, but I don't remember it being a pleasant experience.
nope. Nope. And I don't care what anybody says, sour cream, peanut butter, hide it in their food. Yeah, no, none of that works.
Nope.
No. And if it does, it might work like the first time, and then after that, they're not going for it.
Yeah, exactly.
You may
Yeah, you
Exactly.
gotta have a whole buffet on rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah, I was ready to like start cutting up little pieces of chicken and trying to hide it inside.
Well, the pill
So-
shooter, man. I guess that's the way to go.
Yeah, when in doubt, go with the pill shooter.
No.
Well, I'm glad Teddy's back home, it sounds like. I know it's always good to get second opinions if, you think something's wrong.
Yep.
So,
Yep. He is back home. He's mostly sleeping. He'll get up every now and then and yell at me, and I need to go like open the lanai door so he can go outside, look around, drink out of the water bowl out there to make sure that water isn't any better or worse than the water that's in the house. And then he'll turn around, go in the living room and lie back down. So
perfect.
yeah.
Man, Chris, those objects on the wall really are hypnotic. It's relaxing.
It allows you to test your video frame rate too. I guess that's a third potential usage for them.
That's true.
Because if they look like they pause, then something's wrong with your frame rate. So
No, they are silky smooth for me. So this is quite a show. It's funny.
yeah. And Shelby, is this first broadcast for you out of the new office?
Yes, yeah. We did the threat hunt training a little while ago. And at that point I was in the house, but my office was still just a storage space filled with boxes from all the stuff we hadn't unpacked.
Yeah.
So now it's all unpacked and I'm actually in the office room, which is nice.
It is nice having a setup space. You can't beat that. When I was in my previous role, I regularly worked from the office. And then when the pandemic hit, having to work from home regularly, and I had the ability to work from home kind of at will, but having to work from home regularly quickly made it apparent that working out of an unfinished basement was not just going to cut the mustard. After about the third time that someone said it looked like I was working in a submarine, then realized I needed to up my game a bit and stole a room upstairs where I still find myself, actually.
Yeah. John's kind of gone through a transition with that because for a while he was in a basement and then it looked like he was in an attic with a wood stove behind him. And, now he's got a nice finished space for that.
I really enjoyed the attic arc. Just looks super sketchy. Sometimes the light would just kind of like bleed through the wood panel. It was good. It was great.
Yep. Yeah. The fun one was telling him, "Oh my God, dude, there's a fire behind you." He's like, "What? And he looks and it's the wood stove. So
Oh man.
So what's all your favorite Star Wars movies? This is a fun intergenerational question.
Who goes first?
I'll
Logan,
go
why
first.
don't you go first?
I
Yeah.
asked a question. It's only fair. My favorite one's Rogue One. It's a pretty new one that just not recently came out, but a few years back now. It's really actiony and kind of fills in the gaps between some of the other movies. So I really liked it.
Oh, big time, because it's kind of that whole, we went to, there was a lot of effort that went into getting this information in the first movie, which was actually the sixth movie. And to have like all that filled in was pretty cool. So,
yeah, I thought the payoff was just awesome for that.
Yeah. I think I'm a fan of the original New Hope because damn it, Han did shoot first.
Yes.
And if he didn't, Leia's an idiot. So
that's a good point.
No, good point. I used to say Return of the Jedi. And ultimately the reason I did is because I like the interspersed action that you see at the end, where there's multiple battles going on multiple places. It's exciting, it's fun, it's got a lot of the fun Star Wars feel that, it really sort of sums up the original three pretty well. The only thing I would say though is that the plot is kind of derivative. I mean, they're trying to blow up the Death Star again. Okay, that's cool. You already did that, but in terms of the entertainment value though, I still think it's my favorite.
Yeah,
Brian, how about you, man?
Excuse me. I also really like A New Hope. But I would also say, since that one's already been said, I would also say I did like A Force Awakens, just because I was so concerned about how it was going to be, like with how episodes 1 through 3 ended up being. I was not a huge fan of those three, to be honest. But I thought
so. By the time that came out, your expectations were lower. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So with The Force Awakens, I thought they did a good job of redeeming it somewhat. Still not as good as like the original ones, in my opinion, but it was it was a better step from what they tried to do with episodes 1 through 3. So.
Yeah, well, let's be honest. None of them were as bad as the original Star Wars Christmas special.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I've not seen it. Sounds
so
like maybe
bad.
I shouldn't.
Right.
I've never actually seen the whole thing. I love I love like B and C movies that are really campy. I'll still go out and like dig up Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and stuff like that on occasion, just because I do enjoy the campiness. So that one I've like really wanted to like, oh yeah, that's so bad, I have to watch it. And I never make it more than halfway through. It's like, no, this is just bad. I can't make it past that.
Star Wars Holiday Special, according to Wikipedia, that's where Boba Fett was first introduced, was the Holiday Special.
I don't remember him in that.
Yeah. Well, Wikipedia, believe it
Yeah.
or don't.
Well,
Yeah,
and
it's
it may be true, and he may have appeared towards the end, and that's why I never saw it. So
That's true.
There you go.
Sure enough, halfway through. So, Chris, you say campy sci-fi films are kind of your bag, huh? You have any special favorites?
Oh, Bruce Campbell.
Oh, of course.
He's like, one of my idols. So, and he's got a whole series of stuff he's done that have just come up with some of the best horrible lines that have probably like ever existed. Army of the Dead. It's just
Yeah, Evil Dead and
Evil Dead, yes,
Army of
thank you.
Darkness. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it's been a long. I remember seeing those in high school. It's forever ago. I haven't seen those in forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tried to convince my wife to watch a little bit of Army of the Dead with me, and yeah, no, that wasn't happening. And I was trying to like point out why it was funny and the boomstick and all of that. And it just went over her head. And oh yeah, I need to go like get this other thing done. So
Yeah, man.
really
No, go ahead.
I really enjoyed the days where you go to Walmart and there'd just be the bins full of like discount VHS and
oh yeah.
and you'd just be pulling them out and you would like grab one and it'd have like 2-3 movies on one disc or one VHS, flip it over. And they were just always super bizarre. My favorite one I ever got was called Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there. And it is
That sounds about right.
it is a bizarre film, super campy.
Because Killer Clowns aren't bad enough, it's when they come from outer space. That's what really makes it. So
Over the top.
a movie I thought was going to be really bad and actually isn't too bad is Cowboys versus Aliens, in case you haven't seen that. And it's still campy. It's still not, epic material. It's no Hobbit, but it was just the title said to me, oh, this is going to be really bad. And it actually wasn't too bad. So
Maybe I'll give it a shot.
yeah, let's see. Somebody mentioned The Last Starfighter. I haven't seen that in years, like many, many years.
I remember enjoying that myself, but same story. Haven't seen it in forever.
Yeah, I think I use that movie to justify spending, $40, $50 a night on video games at the arcade. So,
Man, it's about right. What was your game at the arcade, Chris?
oh, probably Dig Dug and Mr. Do.
Oh, it's true classics, man.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
you
the
actually
real deal.
have both of those on your little game system behind you.
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
do have both of those on that thing now. Yep.
Cool.
So that is a nice setup. It's a nice little tabletop. So you got a place to put your frosty beverage while you're playing.
Man, that's fun.
But it's also got, oh geez, it's got Pac-Man, it's got Galaga, Galaxian, and just I think there's about 60, 70 games in that thing. So
That's cool. A lot of the classics. Yeah.
yep.
Centipede was probably one of my favorites from that
Oh,
era. Yeah, and my era was probably that probably would have been early to mid 90s. And I think so that was already after the sort of the heyday of video arcades, perhaps, but and they were already that generation was clearly about 10 years out of date at that time, but I loved them. I love the silly ones. Centipede. There was a game called Red Baron that I loved, and it had the whole seat was part of the cabinet, was integral with the cabinet, and you had a stick with a gun with a button to fire your guns, and it was World War I aerial combat with just these and it was just outlines. You know what I mean? There was no real graphics to speak of. You just saw an outline of a biplane in front of you and fire at it. I remember blowing many dollars at that one. That was a fun one.
So yeah, that all changed to me when I bought that game system. I just threw into Discord, Vectrex. That was the first. Everything up until then was kind of pixel based, and that was the first vector based game. So that was pretty cool. Actually, Shelby, you've probably played that a couple of times.
Oh yeah, I remember that. If you some of the games would come with like a little screen you can put over the monitor so that it was in color.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Yep. If you wanted the game in color, you had to have a little insert over it.
Yeah.
The one thing that kind of bums me out is they used to have 3D goggles for that. And it was just the wildest thing because the goggles had these pieces that would like spin around in front of your eyes when you looked at the screen, and it did make things look three-dimensional. And I lent it to a friend, never got it back, and was going to make a big deal about it. And I said, nah. And then a couple of years ago, I said, oh, those 3D goggles, those were kind of fun. I wonder if you can still pick those up. Yeah, you can for like $4,000.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want them that badly. But yeah, I still got that Vectrex kicking around. That was still one of my favorite game machines.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow. You know what? I just Googled it. There are some really funky looking, these are some truly funky looking goggles. Man. Yeah, that link's got a picture of them there. But cool stuff.
Yeah, Cyber saying Missile Command. Yeah.
I forgot about that one. That was
yeah, especially once you started getting up into the levels.
Well, hey, if you are just joining us and you're a bit confused on what's going on, this is not the actual presentation quite yet. This is what we like to call pre-show banter. We always start our webcasts with some pre-show banter because it's a great way for you to get to know us and us to get to know the community a little bit. If you haven't already joined us on Discord, I would definitely recommend doing that now. We have a Threat Hunter community Discord server. And if you scroll down near the bottom, you'll see an Active Countermeasures section. Right now, we are chatting in the live webcast chat channel. It's the one with the big red dot next to it. And directly under that is the ACM webcast content channel, where you can find the slide deck for today for the actual presentation, which will be starting in about 5 minutes from now. But until then, you can keep listening to us chat about Star Wars or other old movies and video games.
Yeah, and I'm kind of psyched for Brian and Logan to tell the story because it's full of like, oh yeah, we know how to do this. We'll do it this way. It'll be easy. Oh crap, that won't work. Oh, hey, we can do it this other way. Oh yeah, this will definitely work. Oh crap, that doesn't work either.
Yeah, certainly. It was a fun adventure.
Yeah.
Excited to share.
Yeah, it was definitely like that meme where you see the guy walk in and there's a rake in front of him and he's like, I'm not going to step on that. And he walks around and there's just another rake and then he gets full rake to the face. But we made it.
Yeah.
No, the difference is, Logan, and what you guys are doing, you did that repeatedly. So
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Microsoft. It's like, let's take what looks like an awesome feature and put really silly limitations on it so it really isn't all that useful.
Right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
like we're going to talk about before that, I mean, there's just the traffic mirroring options that a lot of other cloud providers offer that Azure had, and then they just took it away. So
Yeah. Yeah. Psych.
yeah,
You think you can do security, but no.
you may
Yeah.
not.
get on our mailing list. We'll let you know if it ever comes back.
Yeah.
It never did.
Man. Yeah, what a tease they are.
Yeah. Although I was waiting for like the day after we released that they'd decide, yeah, okay, we're going to do that feature after all.
Well, thankfully that didn't happen. That's a good thing. But anyway, no, I'm pumped about this one too, Chris, just because this is something that we've been hearing that even I have, being relatively new to the team, have heard for a while since, the first time I've been on, I'm like, what do you guys do in an Azure environment? And, now we have a really good answer to that. So that's a good thing. So.
And I know Brian and Logan well enough to know they're going to get on and say, this was a team effort and everybody worked on it. And, I will say from firsthand experience, these two busted their asses to get this working and put in an awful lot of long hours. And, like I said, and even dealt with the adversity of oh yeah, technically it looks like this feature will work. Let's go this way. Oh wait, now that we're actually implementing it, there's these, stupid limitations that Microsoft doesn't bother telling you about that makes it absolutely useless to us. Oh well, let's try something new. So thank you guys.
Well done, team. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, T-minus 2 minutes here.
Shelby, what's the next webcast we have coming up after this one?
So right now, the only other thing we have on our calendar is the next one of the threat hunt training that we do, the 6-hour course, which won't be until the beginning of July. But we will have other webcasts before then pop up on the calendar. Just gotta plan them out first. And we always look for the community too, for ideas for webcasts. So if there's something about Rita or AC-Hunter or one of our other free tools that you want to learn more about and would love to see a webcast on, feel free to toss the idea out in Discord.
Yep. Yep, always fun. In fact, I think the next threat hunting class, we're starting that a number of hours early to kind of accommodate European time on that one.
Yes.
So what day of the week is that one, Shel?
That will be a Saturday, and it
Oh,
will be.
so we won't have any French people there. Okay.
It'll
I don't
be.
think I think it's against the law for them to work on a Saturday. So
Yeah.
Yeah, they just passed a law where you can't be texted off hours by your boss.
yep.
That's kind of nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to eat at your desk. That's against the law too. Seriously, you have to go out and have lunch. You can't eat at your desk.
Yeah, I know Germany has a 40-hour work week limit. So you're not allowed to require somebody to work more than 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Which it's cool to see countries implementing different, work restrictions like that. Stop people from killing themselves for their jobs. But
yeah,
that's why it's also nice working with Active Countermeasures and Black Hills and just our family of companies, is because we've already kind of implemented those things on our own to some extent. We already work from home all the time. It's not, trying to convince our boss hey, we could really be doing this from our home offices. We don't need to be commuting every day.
No,
okay, so
go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, go for it, Tom.
Oh, I was just going to tack onto that and say, yeah, that's one thing that's quite nice, is the ability to flexibly do things when you need to do them, rather than, according to some sort of arbitrary time scale. Anyway, that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to point out that binary is a freaking riot. They posted a comment in Discord that said, working in Azure as I watch this. So I saw that comment and said, oh, well, maybe they've got Network Watcher working or something, and didn't think too much about it. And then noticed very briefly after that, they posted a GIF that just is, a very good description of Azure. So,
you know what? So that's funny, that GIF, that the original photo that someone added the flames to, that's probably about 1.5 miles from my house.
Really?
Yeah. That was a couple of years ago. That one made the news. It was kind of hilarious.
Wow.
Oh, man. Well, hey, we have hit the top of the hour. So I'm just going to go through quick spiel real quick before I toss things over to Brian and Logan. I'm going to mention one more time for the people who are just joining us that if you want to take place in any of the chat or QA for today, we recommend you going over to our Threat Hunter Community Discord server. I've shared the link to that inside the Zoom chat for everybody. And if you scroll down in the server to the Active Countermeasures section, you'll see the live webcast chat. That's where we are chatting today. And directly under that is the ACM webcast content, where you can find the PDF for today's slide deck. Also, just want to remind everybody that yes, this webcast is being recorded. So if for any reason you have to miss part of it, that is okay. Normally, we do actually live stream our webcast to YouTube. This one is not being live streamed, but it will be up by tomorrow this time. So you can check it out on our YouTube channel then. Along with that, after this webcast, you'll receive an email containing a certificate of attendance for today. And you should expect that again around this time tomorrow. And yes, danger, be careful to hit people.
Yes.
And with that, Brian and Logan,
with that,
I'll toss it over to you guys.
Okay, sounds great.
all right, Brian Logan, I'm going to go watch Discord for you. You guys have fun.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay, so let me get everything set up here. Just bear with me for a moment. So let's see, we're going to start that. Oh, no. Okay. Share screen first. Alrighty. Does this look good for everyone? Toby, Logan, Tom, does this look good?
Looks good.
Alrighty, we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So again, I'm Brian Fehrman, and with me we've got Logan Lembke as well. And today we're going to go over our adventures in integrating AC-Hunter into the Azure environment. So just to give a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. Of course, since, as we mentioned earlier, today is May 4th, we have our obligatory meme that we need to throw in here. Beyond that, though, we'll just give a quick overview of who we are. We'll talk about what AC-Hunter is, go over Azure just a little bit of what that environment is for those of you who don't know. Talk about our first attempt at getting AC-Hunter integrated into Azure. Talk about the troubles we ran into and why that approach didn't work out. Talk about our second approach to getting AC-Hunter integrated into Azure. And then just briefly talk about some of the next steps after that going forward. So who are we? Again, I'm Brian, and we got Logan on here as well. We are developers for Active Countermeasures. So we work on AC-Hunter, Rita, and all the other products that we have that we make available. I think I can safely say that we are both cat enthusiasts. So we both have cats, and cats are awesome. And beyond that, you can go ahead and fill in the blanks of all the things that people usually put up on these slides, but most people don't really care about. So what is AC-Hunter? Well, primarily it's something to help you find compromised devices within your network. And really what we're looking for is agents or implants that are attempting to phone home, if you're wondering the connection of the GIF or the meme there. And essentially what it does is it will continuously analyze network data, network logs from various sources such as Sysmon and NetFlow and Zeek, with Zeek being one of the primary sources that people typically use and that we package up to go with AC-Hunter, among other things. And beyond just analyzing that, the network data or the network logs to look for suspicious activity like beaconing activity, long connections, weird DNS activity, we also have a relatively new feature that we call cyber deception. And what this is within your Active Directory environment, you can set up decoy accounts or decoy files. And for the accounts, if anyone tries to access those accounts via, password spraying, manual login attempts, Kerberosing attacks, you'll get an alert for that. And similar with files. So you can set up files in maybe a sysvol location or other places in your network where you think that threat actors might look. And if someone were to access that file, well, then you get an alert for it. So pretty handy, pretty neat feature. And one of the things we like to say about AC-Hunter is that the price on it is less than the sales tax on a lot of similar products. And so that's the main sales pitchy part of this. With that, we'll move into the more technical details. And so in a typical environment, this is what a setup might look like. So you've got your network and you've got a span port on your network that allows you to mirror traffic. And you have Zeek that is listening for traffic from that span port. So Zeek will ingest that raw log data, put it into the Zeek format, and then that gets shipped over to the AC-Hunter system where it will get ingested and analyzed. And from there, you have the user interface where your threat hunters, your analysts can look at the recent activity and drill down into various aspects of it and try to find those systems that really need more attention, the systems that are exhibiting anomalous activity that you can go further investigate. So here's just a screenshot of the interface from AC-Hunter. So we have various modules. If you look down at the very bottom there, you can see the various modules that we have for AC-Hunter. And this is probably one of the big go-to ones is this beacons module. So again, we're looking for implants that are in your network that are calling home. You know, typically they'll do this at regular frequencies, regular intervals or predictable intervals. And this is activity that we can pick up on. And when we see this activity, we kind of bring it to the top of the list. We give it a higher score. We give you information about it. And you can go and you can do further research to figure out, you know, what's causing this activity and try to get that sorted out. So what is Azure? So that was AC-Hunter, but now let's talk about Azure for those of you who don't know. Really what this is Microsoft's cloud environment. Think of it kind of like Microsoft's version of AWS, I guess you could think of it, or Google Cloud Platform. And what it is it provides you the ability to either store data or set up a virtual infrastructure. And when I say virtual infrastructure, you can have a single VM, whether it be, you know, Windows-based or Linux, or you can have basically a full-blown Active Directory environment. And this infrastructure can actually integrate with your on-premise environment as well. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's pretty cool, to be honest. And so within Azure, they also have what's called a marketplace. Now, this marketplace is where you can go and you can find virtual machine images that people have put together. So they've set up a base image. You can go and you can buy this image and you can use it for your purposes. You know, maybe just applications that run on images, virtual appliances, lots of different things that are available on the marketplace. Kind of like just almost like an app store, but for the cloud. So the main idea here then is to take AC-Hunter, which is, you know, it's traditionally been an on-premise solution, package this up as an Azure Marketplace VM, and then make it available for purchase and use within the Azure environment. And one of the cool things with this is that when you go to buy an image off of the Azure environment or off of the Azure Marketplace, you can scale that image based upon your needs. So basically the base image is put together and you say, you know, how many cores you want, the amount of memory you want, and disk space you want. Anyone who's worked with, say, like ESXi type environments, I mean, it's kind of a similar concept. You know, you can scale the image based upon your needs, and Azure is no different in that respect. So, you know, job done, right? We can pack it up and we'll go home. I mean, all we need to do is just package this up and put it into Azure, and then we're done. So pack it up, pack it in, and well, unfortunately, let me begin. Sorry, it's a bad one, but I have to put it in there. So unfortunately, it's not quite that easy. The question is, well, how do we collect that traffic? So I've got the graphic up, a similar graphic to what you saw earlier. I've got that up again here. And you can see, again, that in an on-premise environment, it's usually easy enough to hook into a span port somewhere. That's where we can capture traffic using Zeek or, you know, whatever other mechanism and get that shipped over to AC-Hunter. And in an AWS environment, they do have this. They have the traffic mirroring capability. And again, in on-premise, you have that with the span port. Azure did have this feature, but unfortunately it was removed. I couldn't find a lot of information on why it was removed. It was called Virtual Network Tap, I believe was the name of the feature. People who had who had basically opted into that feature a while ago, I believe, still have access to it, but any new customers are not allowed to use this feature. It's not there. So we have to come up with other options. What's another one? Well, Azure has what's called Network Watcher. And if you're wondering about the connection with the meme, if people aren't familiar, Watchman, Network Watcher, it's a bit of a stretch, but I really like the Watchman, so I kind of wanted to force that one in there. And what Network Watcher is it allows for you to do packet captures from a VM. And now this runs on a per VM basis. So you don't just set it up and capture all traffic from an Azure network or Azure virtual network. You have to point it to a specific virtual machine. And so you can run this against multiple virtual machines at the same time. So each virtual machine has its own instance of Network Watcher running that's capturing packets for that virtual machine. And that's great. And another nice thing is this easily integrates with PowerShell because, we can't expect people to go and manually, start, stop packet captures on VMs and ship over the traffic. That's just not a feasible option. So integrating with PowerShell or some other automation tool is definitely a must because we need to be able to automate this behavior. So here was the general idea, which is basically that we have the PowerShell scripts, automated scripts that would cause Network Watcher to run on an hourly basis. And so within Azure, just to talk a little bit about the structure of it, essentially, or the hierarchy, what you have at the top level is basically is a subscription. You can have multiple subscriptions, and within those subscriptions, you have resource groups. Within the resource groups, you have your assets, virtual machines, storage containers, whatever else. And so with here, the idea is anytime that a new VM pops up within a subscription that you're monitoring, that VM will automatically get added to the list, and Network Watcher will get kicked off to that VM along with all of the other VMs. And so once this was initially set up, so after you run the initial setup script, no additional interaction would be needed from the user. So you don't have to go and add in virtual machines and say you want to monitor them. It would automatically pick them up and do it for you. So as I mentioned just a minute ago, of other, kind of the hierarchy of Azure is the resource groups and storage containers. And so basically within each resource group, we have to have a place to store that PCAP data. So Network Watcher is running against virtual machines, it's collecting PCAP data. That data has to go somewhere. And so where the place we put that data is in storage containers. And the way we separate those out is based upon resource groups. And so each resource group would get its own storage container, and Network Watcher would then write the PCAP groups to the storage container within resource group. Now, we need to have access to those storage containers, though, and one mechanism to do that is with blob views. Blob views is pretty cool. It allows you to essentially mount a storage container that's in Azure as though it's local on a VM. And so that was part of this process as well, too, is after we've got the storage container set up, we can then mount them locally on the AC-Hunter VM using blob views. So mentioned the resource groups a couple times, and that's a nice way to kind of logically group your assets within Azure. And so what we would do is all the PCAPs from within a resource group would all be kind of grouped or merged together. And as I mentioned, we have PCAPs on a per VM basis, but ideally we want those all as a single PCAP so that we can analyze kind of everything as a whole, get an entire view of the environment, at least within a resource group level. And to do that, we'd use TCP slice to merge the PCAPs together. But the problem from there is that AC-Hunter and Rita don't really deal with PCAPs directly. We need something else like a Zeek format. And so once the PCAPs are merged, we could use Zeek to convert those PCAPs into Zeek log format. From there, we could go ahead and we can ingest those and do our analysis. And so down on the bottom there is just kind of an overview of what the data sets might look like within AC-Hunter. So You might have like a sales resource group where all of your sales systems live, a development resource group, a marketing resource group, however you might logically separate out your assets within Azure. We can group those together in that fashion for AC-Hunter analysis. So that sounds great. What's the problem with that? I mean, why won't that work? Well, a couple issues. Network Watcher has some limitations. One of the limitations is that you can't run a capture for more than 5 hours at a time. So it's not like Wireshark or TCP dump or a lot of the other tools you might normally like to use where you just run them continuously. Zeke, it's not like that. You can run it for up to 5 hours at a time. And you can't inspect the data while it's being captured. So while an active instance of Network Watcher is running, you can't actually view the data that it's capturing. You have to stop that packet capture session before you can look at any of the data. And one of the big problems is that you can't capture more than 1 gigabyte of data per PCAP session. So you can capture up to 5 hours or 1 gigabyte, whichever comes first. You can't exceed those in a session. But maybe not everything is lost. There's limits on how long you can run a packet capture. There's limits on how much data you can capture, but there aren't limitations necessarily, explicit limitations on how many packet capture sessions you can run in a time period or in a day. So the next thought is, then maybe we can just run back-to-back captures a little bit more often to be able to hit that bandwidth mark that we would like to achieve. Because capturing only 1 gigabyte of traffic at a time, I mean, it's not a whole lot if you have a lot of traffic in your environment. If you're monitoring a server, that's going to get filled up quickly. But maybe we could just do a bunch of captures and merge those all together. So let's look at the logistics of that. One thing to note, as I mentioned, is that you can't view data while a session is running. You have to stop that session before you can view that data, and then you have to start up a new one. Well, there's a delay when you do that. So there is about a 10-second delay between stopping a Network Watcher session and starting a new one. So then the next idea is, well, what about if we just overlap captures? So we don't say stop this one and then start this one. We say start this one and then stop the previous one. And if we have redundant data, we'll deal with that. But that's a lot better than missing data. I'd rather have to throw in just a little bit of extra processing power to get rid of data that appears more than once, rather than end up missing out on data. We definitely don't want to miss out on data. So could we do that? Well, not exactly. It looks like you can when you're playing around with this in Azure, but really you can't. So what I mean by that is you can go into Azure for a given VM, you can start a Network Watcher session, and then you can start another Network Watcher session. It will say they're running. It looks like everything is fine, but when you go to actually inspect the data, that's not what's happening. It's basically an either or, and you end up with weird stuff that happens with it in terms of if the data shows up or not, how it shows up. But long story short, it just doesn't work. So let's run some numbers on this. Ideally, we would like to achieve at least a 1 gigabit per second bandwidth. I mean, at least. If we can't hit that, then we're not going to be able to keep up with a lot, high traffic environments, high traffic systems. And so, in looking at trying to achieve that, we need to take some numbers into account. We can capture 1 gigabyte per session, and there's a 10-second delay between captures. So let's crunch the numbers, crunching, and no, it won't work. So what ends up happening, what we calculated out, is that to hit the 1 gigabit per second rate, the captures would need to run for basically every 7 seconds. We would need to kick off a new capture. That delay time is 10 seconds between captures. So that means that we would literally be missing more data than we would be capturing if we're attempting to achieve that 1 gigabit per second bandwidth. Now, if you don't need that kind of bandwidth, if you have, say, a smaller environment that doesn't have a lot of traffic, or just certain VMs that you want to monitor that maybe aren't producing that kind of traffic, this might work. That might work for you. This approach might be viable, and that's fine. But for most higher traffic systems, it's not going to work, unfortunately. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will turn it over to Logan, who will bring you up to speed on the second approach.
Alrighty, bear with us while we go ahead and switch over presenters here. Let's see. Okay, desktop 1, and then slides. Are we looking good, Brian?
Yep, looks good to me.
Alrighty. So as Brian told you all just previously, we had a few plans and neither of them worked out. When we're designing this as an on-premise solution, we are planning on using a span port from some sort of network switch, or maybe a traffic mirroring solution from an on-premise hypervisor like ESXi. But as Brian said, Azure took that feature away and we didn't have access to it anymore. Then we were thinking maybe we could grab packet captures and then push those through Zeek, and then we could push that over to AC-Hunter. But as you just heard, there's severe limitations on that with data sizes, bandwidths, and timings. So we had to throw that out the window too. So we're back to square one. What kind of network data can we actually work with Rita and AC-Hunter? Well, we can take in Zeek logs. That's good to know. We have our SB offering, which uses sysmon and winlogbeat to grab network connection logs from the Windows kernel, log it out to the Windows event log, and format them so AC-Hunter can read that data. And we also can take in NetFlow v9, although that data is pretty lacking as there's not a lot of data that's actually recorded in NetFlow. Looking at this, we kind of threw our hands up in the air and said, well, what if we can just collect from each machine individually, taking an agent-based approach? So the idea is that we can install Zeek on each Linux machine that's in the cloud and record those Zeek logs locally, SCP them all back to the central AC-Hunter machine, and then process them there. We can also install sysmon and winlogbeat on each of the Windows machines, collect all those logs via SB and forward those to AC-Hunter. But the problem with that is that you would have to install agent on each individual machine. That's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time to provision that all out. Thankfully, Azure has a lot of wonderful automation tools that allow you to run scripts against different virtual machines, lets you shell into them really easily to deploy any software that you need. So the thought is that if we go with the agents, there's going to be benefits and drawbacks. As we talked about previously with the packet captures, we had to worry about gaps in the data. If we were going to run the overlapping packet captures, which didn't work out, we were going to have to worry about deduplicating certain parts of the packet capture. And when you run packet captures, you have to store all of that data somewhere. And if you've ever tried to manage storing PCAPs for any sizable network, it gets really unwieldy really quickly. And also the drawback to going the packet capture route is that Azure Network Watcher actually charges you separately beyond just your actual VM pricing, which is rather unfortunate. But that approach didn't work out. So let's take a look at the drawbacks of our agent-based workflow. Well, as I said before, you actually have to install the agents onto each individual machine, and that's a complex task, and nobody likes dealing with that. Agents also take away system resources from whatever you're running, And that can be a problem if you're running mission critical services on a budget. You don't want to provision more than you need to as far as resources. And then also on our Windows hosts, the sysmon logs lack a lot of the details that are provided by Zeek. So with Zeek, we can get protocol level analysis. We can look at the TLS handshakes. We can look at the certificates on the wire. We know more about the connections that are being used, what protocols are being used, and the data sizes of those connections. Sysmon only gives us the connection timings, the connection tuples, which is the host and the ports. And we also get some DNS logs, but they're also not as high of resolution as we would get with Zeek. So we have some drawbacks, but we're going to go with it anyways. So the idea is that we want to be able to take AC-Hunter and ship that up to the Azure Marketplace so anybody can just go randomly on a whim, buy it, install it in their network, get up and running, and deploy these agents to their machines in their Azure environment. When we do this, we're going to package an install script on that virtual machine that you buy from the marketplace, and it's going to come prepackaged with all the stuff you need to get running AC-Hunter. That's going to come with Zeek. It's going to come with Rita. It's going to come with AC-Hunter. All of the components shipped right there. And when you run that install script, it's going to go ahead and create everything you need in Azure to automate the deployment of those agents. So that includes setting up a resource group to hold all of the Active Countermeasures scripts, a storage account to hold the installers that end up getting deployed to the different VMs, and an automation account to hold the runbook that actually scripts out the deployment. And when you're running this install script, we want to make sure that your Azure credentials are only on that virtual machine during that initial setup. And we want to make sure that those get blasted away as soon as possible, just because when you have the keys to Azure, you really do have the keys to the whole kingdom. So when you get that all set up, it'll create that runbook in Azure. And then that runbook will take in a list of resource groups that you want to deploy against. When you have that list, you can sort out your systems by Windows or Linux machines and decide whether you want to install just Windows or just Linux monitors, being Zeek or Sysmon respectively. And then after that runbook goes through, it registers continuous log transfers and ensures that the data is flowing from those machines over to AC-Hunter. When that data gets to AC-Hunter, all of that data is processed through Rita and joined into one single data set. This can be disabled and it saves a little bit of processing time. And in that case, the Linux host ends up in their own data set and Windows hosts end up lumped together in their own. But by default, it takes a little bit more processing time, but it combines it all together and makes it really easy to go through the analysis. So as I said before, we are limited by the kind of data that we can get from Sysmon and Winlog Beat on Windows. In the future, we would like to integrate with Packet Beat. However, there are some licensing issues that go along with the driver that is used to gather PCAPs on Windows. So we'll have to gauge interest and figure out if we can deal with those licensing issues in the future. And we'd also like to improve how the different results from the different hosts are mapped into the data sets. So as I said before, right now they're all combined into a single data set. With the packet capture solution, our second attempt, we were looking at combining all of the results based on the resource groups in Azure. Unfortunately, we can't do that with this agent-based approach as it stands today, but it's something we are interested in implementing in the future. So kind of the conclusions of the whole talk is that, Network Watcher didn't work out. It's insufficient for tracking large Azure networks or even just, one really busy server. It doesn't work out. It's more useful for troubleshooting situations, not really watching an analysis. Our agent-based approach that we had developed separately was able to be repurposed to monitor Azure assets, which is awesome. And you can access all of this on the Azure Marketplace today, and it is free for existing AC-Hunter customers. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick off a demo showing how this install process works in Azure. We're going to start from the point where we've bought the Azure VM for AC-Hunter, and we've run the install script. So it's went and deployed everything into the Azure automation account. And we're going to install our agents on a Windows and a Linux system. And we're gonna see how that runs through. And when that finishes up, I have a environment where we've already installed everything and we've let the data run through. I have an implant that's been running on the Ubuntu server, and we're gonna take a look at how that shows up in AC-Hunter. So Brian, if there's any questions, do we want to field those real quick while I go ahead and get switched over?
Sure. I think I saw one over here, using TCP slice versus edit cap, just a preference. I don't know about edit cap, but we did originally attempt to use merge cap and ran into weird issues where it just didn't correctly merge together the packet captures. I don't know exactly what the problem was, to be honest, but in switching over to TCP slice, it seemed to clean everything up. So yeah, it wasn't, it just, for whatever reason, it had issues. And again, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what they were, but I know the captures, it just, they ended up weird. So TCP slice fixed it up. Delta times, that might have been it. It might have been something with that, yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here?
Alrighty. Well, it sounds like we can wait on the questions just a little bit. We'll have another moment to answer some questions. Just want to show that we have our AC-Hunter machine that's been deployed in Azure as demo 1. And we have 2 hosts, an Ubuntu 20 machine and a Windows server running Windows Server 2019. They are all in the same resource group, ACH Azure Demo 1. That's what we're going to be installing against today. And then the one that's already been installed and running is in ACH Azure Demo 2, and that's what we'll be taking a look at afterwards. So after we've run our install script, we will have an automation account, and it'll be labeled ACH automation. In this case, I have it named -demo1, just so that way I can have 2 instances of this running right now in our own Azure account. For most people, that won't be a problem. You'll just have the single instance. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at that runbook and how we fill that out. So this says ACH Azure deploy. We're going to go ahead and start it. We do want to install against all of our Linux hosts. We do want to install against all of our Windows hosts. It'll default to outputting a log in our blob storage account that the script created right there. The resource group that we want to target is ACH Azure Demo 1. We don't want to exclude any systems, and we don't have to worry about updating anything because this is a fresh installation. Then we're going to go ahead and hit OK, cross our fingers, wear our lucky socks, and hopefully the output will come out clean. I will say that I gave this a run last night, and Azure ran into an issue where the API didn't want to return the list of VMs. So that was nice, but I just ended up running it again and everything worked out. So this has to wait a minute while it goes and deploys Zeek to all the Linux servers and SB, Sysmon, and WinLogBeat to all of the Windows servers. It'd be a good time to answer any other questions, Brian.
Sure, sounds good. Let's see, we have a question. Would you recommend using the Azure VM AC-Hunter to collect, analyze logs for non-Azure Zeek instances? So I'm guessing you're asking, say if you have an on-premise Zeek solution where Zeek is capturing traffic on your on-premise network, to ship that up to an Azure VM AC-Hunter or instance. Sure, I mean, we do have, our what we call ACH hosted instances where we have an instance running in the cloud that gets data shipped to it. So certainly you could host up the Azure VM or the AC-Hunter VM within Azure and ship the data up to it. What do you think on that one, Logan?
Yeah, certainly. There should be no problems in setting up routine data transfers from a local Zeek system and shipping it up to the cloud for analysis. You do need to make sure you're using proper encryption, but that shouldn't be hard if you have SSH set up. Just set up rsync or SCP. We also have scripts that help automate the routine data transfer and we'd be happy to help anybody set that up. Like you say, we do have the ACH hosted service, which is a bit more turnkey if you're just looking to get a cloud instance up and running where you can integrate your sensors from multiple different networks. And we host that up in DigitalOcean, and it seems to work out well for a lot of people. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't advise against it. It should work out just fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I have a couple other questions that are on that line that I'm going to answer real quick before you move on. So we have someone, is there any way we can have a single AC-Hunter instance in Azure that monitors on-prem as well as Azure VM? Yeah, certainly. There shouldn't be any problem with it grabbing data from the agent-based data within the Azure environment, as well as shipping data up, similar to the question that Evitable Julian asked. So that shouldn't be a problem. And James V commented on AC-Hunter run fine using the normal install to an Azure Ubuntu machine. Yep, certainly. So you can, installing AC-Hunter in Azure isn't the problem. The problem is the data capture portion of it. But if running AC-Hunter as a VM in Azure and shipping data up to that, certainly that's something you can do. With that, I'll go ahead and I'll turn it back over to you, Logan, and we can grab the rest of the questions at the end here.
Alrighty, so we have our logs starting to pour out from the script. We see that the script is targeting this ACH Azure Demo 1 resource group that I gave it. It was able to find the storage account that was initialized during the initial install. And within that storage account, there are storage containers in Azure, and it was able to find that. And from that container, it was able to pull down the AC-Hunter installation materials, grab the latest Zeek install script, as well as the latest SB agent install script. It then looked to see if there's any Linux or Windows machines in the ACH Azure Demo 1 resource group. It was able to find the two machines that we have there, the one Ubuntu 20 machine and the one Server 2019 machine. And then currently it is deploying the agents to those systems. And we are just waiting on that to report back. Rather than sit here and bore you while we wait for that, let's go ahead and take a look at a instance where I've already went and deployed AC-Hunter Azure against two other machines, very similar, just an Ubuntu 20 and Windows Server 2019 installation. Here we have the dashboard, and you see that the hosts report with their internal IP addresses. So by default, Azure will make sure that these don't conflict if you have different virtual networks set up, but just know that you do want to keep track of what those internal IPs are, and it works best if you set static IPs, just because then you know it won't change and you can track changes over time. So here we see that we have a couple threat scores here in the threat breakdown. This top one here, this .0.5 is our Windows machine, and it thinks that there is a strong beacon in that data. And right now I don't have any safe listing applied, so there's no filtering. So what I'm guessing is that this beacon is actually Microsoft telemetry. Basically, any routine programmatic access is going to show up as a beacon, and that means it's rather important to go through and disable as much telemetry and ads as you can, and then develop safe lists after that in order to filter out those results, so that way you can look for malicious programmatic access. And we can see that it also was able to do some limited DNS analysis, but we don't have anything about canary tokens or protocols or rare signatures, simply because we don't have that kind of data coming from Sysmon on these Windows machines. If we look at our Zeek sensor running on our Linux machine, we can see that it does indeed have some of these rare client signature counts, because it's able to do that deeper analysis, and it's able to pull out some beacons and long connections information. So let's go ahead and just take a look at what pops up for this Windows host under our beacon screen. So as I said before, what we probably are going to see the most is Microsoft telemetry. Right here, we have our internal host. This down the left side is going to be which host or which IP initiated each set of connections to a given destination. So here we have our Windows machine. It is going out to another Microsoft machine out there, and it's mainly using UDP DNS as well as port 80 HTTP. We can look down at the bottom and we see that over this time period that the number of connections was consistent each hour. That's a sign of programmatic connection-based access. And over here, we have our delta times in between each connection. So here we can see there's 154 connections, 1 second apart, but most of the time it was firing off connections to the server every 15 seconds. And this is just Microsoft keeping an eye on the system, and it knows that it's online and whatnot. When we go to look at the data size analysis, though, we just see 0 bytes reported for how many overtimes. This is an artifact and limitation of using sysmon data. It simply does not report the data sizes, so all of the data size analysis comes out somewhat invalid, but it doesn't affect the total ranking of the individual threats, and you can still explore the delta time beaconing analysis. Additionally, we could go over and look at the DNS logs and look for DNS-based C2s, command and control channels. But in this case, we're just going to see some reverse IP address lookup, some ARPA stuff, as well as if we go and set the threshold down really low, we'll see some Windows stuff heading up to Microsoft. If we go and look at our Linux host and go look at our beacons, we can see that we have other hosts actually trying to contact this host. And that's because this is just a testing machine and I left SSH open. It's protected with a key and everything, but people are still going to probe and scan that it's SSH out open on the cloud. So we can see that this IP over here has been trying to regularly get into my test host for about an hour. So I imagine they had fun trying to brute force that. If we go and look over here, I have set up an implant on that Linux host and ran it overnight. And I set it up to be a rather tricky implant. So what we're looking at over here are the data sizes. I had it randomize the data size quite a bit. So that ended up taking the score down because when we're looking for our C2 connections, we're just looking for heartbeat packets that are going to be usually as little data as possible and fairly consistent. So that way they don't trigger any flags. But you can throw it off by randomizing the data size, and that's what I've done here. But we can still look and see that the connections were regular over each hour. That's a pretty big warning sign. It's going to port 4444. That's unusual. And if we go look at the timing analysis, we can see that it's all clustered up around 156 connections every 35 seconds. So it's sending out connections every 30 seconds, give or take 5 to 10. And that's all data that we were able to capture in Azure. And this is a capability that we didn't previously have due to the limitations we've talked about in the past. Let's go ahead and take a look at that run from deploying against our Ubuntu 20 and Windows Server 2019 machines. We can see that it was deploying the agents. It's installed the agent on our Ubuntu 20 machine. It's installed the agent on our Server 2019 machine. And if we were to give it an hour, we would see similar data to what we just looked at. Brian, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and hand it back over to you.
Yeah, sure. No, that was great. I don't really have much else beyond that. That was excellent. I don't see too much else for questions either. Someone was asking basically, mentioned that we already have Sentinel up in the Azure environment. Why AC-Hunter as well? Well, it's not exactly the same feature set, but between the two. Definitely different products, I would say. In terms of that, for people who are already using AC-Hunter or interested in it, this can kind of help to unify environments and give you a familiar interface. On top of that, I would, oh, sorry about that. On top of that, I would probably also point out cost too. I just pulled up cost over here of Sentinel. Someone else in the chat had brought this up earlier too, and the costs for Sentinel are pretty crazy. So they charge you per gigabyte of data ingested. And so for instance, if you ingest a terabyte in a day, it's $960 a day, which I think is more than you would get charged for an entire month of AC-Hunter, including the infrastructure cost within Azure. So, just not quite the same approaches between AC-Hunter and Sentinel. So, I think that's, let's see, were there any other questions here?
I'll just riff off of that last question a little bit here.
Yeah.
So we have considered integrating with SIMs such as Sentinel. We had another customer question come up and ask if we would integrate with Graylog. And, the possibility is there. We are just working with sysmon logs, which are just standard Windows events. And in theory, we could stream from a SIM that collects sysmon logs. The problem with that is really doing a bunch of different third-party integrations. Everybody sends their data a little bit differently. A lot of them use syslog as a transport layer, which we can integrate with. But it just gets really unruly really quick when you're trying to integrate with all of these different SIMs. And until we have the means to sit down with a particular SIM and work with a customer on integrating with that SIM, it's just really inaccessible to be able to integrate with all those different products.
Yep, certainly. Another question here. Is there any way for AC-Hunter to monitor things like app services, IoT Hub, WAFs, stuff like that, stuff that isn't an Azure VM with an agent on it? So in terms of Azure, the environment, pretty much if we can put an agent, so if that's a Linux-based system or a Windows-based system, if we have the ability to install an agent on that system, then we can monitor it. Outside of that, we don't currently have that ability. We got one here, not in Discord, but on the chat. The person asks, will Sentinel-based logs be analyzed? Logan, you just answered that one with your last comments. Next is, how do you really confirm if there was any brute force activity in AC-Hunter logs? So brute force, I guess I'm not exactly sure what we're referring to here. If we're talking about like on the Windows side of someone trying to get into a particular account, activity for that within like an Active Directory environment, that's a whole nother monitoring system that we have set up. I don't know, maybe sometime later we can do a webcast on that one, but there we have agents that sit out in the Active Directory environment that are ingesting event logs and shipping that over to AC-Hunter system. So if we're talking about network type activity in terms of continuous connection attempts against a system, it might be something we might pick up with for monitoring external to internal traffic, say with like beaconing activity or strobe-based activity or something like that. We can pick that up as well. Let's see what else. Let's see, in response to the IoT device, Chris had mentioned if it's connected to the network, we can monitor it. Yes, so if you're talking about an on-premise device, certainly if that's talking out on the network, we can capture and analyze that traffic. But in Azure, again, that's a little bit different you know, in Azure as of right now, I basically need to be able to put an agent on the device one way or another. So let's see. So I think that's all I see. Logan, do you have any last comments or anything?
Yeah, I would say that with regards to IoT in the cloud, well, let me back up a moment. So with IoT, generally, if it's on premises, we can be able to tap into a span port on some sort of switch, or even use a hub if you're really strapped for money. But with IoT in the cloud, with Azure, we don't really have a solution, unfortunately, and that goes back to not being able to use that network tap that Azure took away. With AWS, however, though, there is the traffic mirroring option, and you can mirror from any virtual interface in Amazon. And that does include various services beyond just EC2. So the story for IoT in the cloud is a little bit better when you look at platforms beyond just Azure. We have a question that says, with the agent-based approach, are the logs sent directly to AC-Hunter? Is there a need for storage? So the logs are immediately sent to AC-Hunter in the case, let me back up here. With Windows, the logs will be stored in the Windows event log. The events will be stored in the Windows event log, and you will need to set your retention policies there in order to make sure that those don't build up over time. The logs will be streamed to the AC-Hunter machine in real time on Windows, so you can delete those logs pretty quickly after they come out. On Linux with Zeek, the logs will be stored in opt-Zeek logs on the host that the agent is running. You'll probably want to set up some sort of cron job to delete those out. We have scripts that help with that. And those logs are transferred to AC-Hunter every hour. On the AC-Hunter VM, that's where you're going to really want to focus on your storage. And when you provision the AC-Hunter VM from the marketplace, we have a guide that walks you through setting up an external disk to that VM and helps you size that right for the amount of data that you're collecting.
Yep, and I just want to mention too that guide that Logan just mentioned, when you go to the Azure Marketplace and you find the AC-Hunter VM, we have a link to it front and center on the description with bolded setup guide. So that way there's hopefully not much confusion with getting it set up, what the expectations are in terms of storage, adding that to that storage to the system, which during the installation process, that storage will automatically get mounted to the correct location for you. It's really easy. Basically, you get the VM, you provision it, add the storage, choose the size that you want. We even give a recommended size on there. It allows you to do that. And then once you've got it, you run a script, you log in, you do an Azure login. I think you type maybe just a couple things and it sets everything else up for you. So it's pretty automated and pretty easy. Has this been tried with Google Cloud? Not yet. We haven't done much testing or research into Google Cloud Platform, but if that's certainly if that's a common request, and certainly something that I'm sure that we would be interested in looking into. Let's see here. So I don't see any other questions. Up and Chris says that we've gotten a couple requests for that for Google Cloud Platform, so probably something we will look into. All right, Tom, Shelby, Chris, you guys have any final thoughts here?
Yeah,
Well, go ahead, Shelby.
I was just going to say, I'm not seeing any more questions either, but definitely an awesome webcast. And thank you again, Brian and Logan, for doing your first webcast with us.
And I just wanted to thank you guys also for just developing this function. This has been something that a lot of people have been asking about for a long time. And you had to use a lot of creativity to pull it off. So great job, guys. Thanks a lot for walking us through it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. It's certainly been a fun adventure.
Certainly. Thank you all.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, so did see one, is there a use case for AC-Hunter being deployed for WAF scenarios? Well, it's wow, how to answer this quickly? Yes, it's not like it's an augment for a firewall, but if somebody's able to make it through all that and whack something on the inside, which typically doesn't come in as a direct attack, it's typically, some sort of a phishing attack where somebody clicks something or runs something they weren't supposed to, it can certainly automate that type of setup. So, and with that said, hey, look at that, 3 minutes till the top of the hour. We're right on time.
Yes.
Just one final comment too, before we hop off, just something we mentioned in the presentation that I just want to reiterate for current AC-Hunter customers on here. The Azure thing is that's free. If you're already an AC-Hunter customer, you don't need to buy the appliance on Azure. Just come to our portal. We have steps there for helping to get you set up. Just wanted to mention that though before we go. So.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you guys for doing this.
Yes, thank you again, Logan and Brian. It's always nice to hear the process of how features like this come to be. And we're getting lots of thank yous in the Discord as well. James B did say, hey, I heard it might be Bill Stern's birthday. And he is correct. It is Bill Stern's birthday. So if you want to give a shout out to him and say happy birthday, please feel free. He is actually in San Diego or on a plane right now to San Diego.
And
for
let me
Wild
tell
West
you, he
Hacking
will love
Fest.
that because he tries really hard to hide when his actual birth date is.
Yes. Yes, so he'll be in San Diego. So if anybody here is planning to go to Wild West Hacking Fest Way West, say hi to him and happy birthday in person. James is suggesting you tickle him as well. I'm not sure how well he'd take that, but you can definitely try. And thank you again, everybody, for joining us for today's webcast. Another reminder that it was recorded. So if you missed any part of this, you can catch it on our YouTube channel. Normally, these are live streamed. This one was not, but it will be up on YouTube within the next 24 hours. This time tomorrow, you'll also receive an email containing a certificate of attendance from this webcast as well. And if you're joining Wild West Hacking Fest Way West, don't forget to stop by and say hi to us either virtually or in person. And if you're not, hopefully we will see you in another upcoming webcast or training.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Right. Bye, guys.
Thanks, y'all. Later.